Hi, my name's Will Crombie. I'm a farmer and filmmaker that's dedicated to the regenerative agriculture movement, and I'm applying it in my own life and businesses, seeking out mentors, movers, and soil builders in this series. I call it Regeneration-Conversations. And in this episode, you're going to hear from Gary Zimmer and André Liu. Both Gary and André are true pioneers in the healthy food and farming movement. In the conversation you're about to witness, they cut straight through to the point of what is regenerative agriculture and how they see it succeeding. Check it out.
So regenerative is what we were all talking about these days.
Bringing regenerative leaders together.
And this story about regenerative
and regeneration.
This is a discussion we need to have and information we need to get out to other farmers. My name is André Liu, and I'm a farmer, and I'm the International Director of Regeneration International.
Well, I'm Gary Zimmer, and from the Midwest, USA, and have a business called Midwestern BioAg, and I've been involved in what I call biological farming, and whether it's regenerative, biological, they all have different meanings to different people, but I've been involved in what we call biological farming now for 40 years. I work with about 4,000 farms all over the Midwest and written 3 books and traveled the world on biological farming. I'm considered the father of biological farming, and in the 1970s we called it biological farming because we wanted the farmers to focus on biology and not just chemistry, because it was a living live system. Well, now way back in the 90s even, we put out rules for biological farming. I wrote my 6 rules. You really got 3 concepts to take care of: the chemistry, the nutrients, the physical, and the biological parts of your soil. And so we had our little rules and things. Now regenerative agriculture, is what you're working with, is another word that's gained a lot of popularity, and a lot of people really like to use the word regenerative, and Robert Rodale, I believe, is the first one that used that term years and years ago. I'm concerned about some things, and also I do like the word, but what am I regenerating to? And when you say regenerative, does that mean are there rules to regenerative? Now, some of the rules that are being applied in some areas mean, if I'm regenerative, that means I have to have livestock, I have to be no-till, which must mean some kind of chemistry. I have to use that. I have to do cover crops and use compost. So in other areas, they got different rules for regenerative. Now, I think most of America, I'd say probably a huge hunk of it, certainly needs to be regenerated. And I don't know what that means. What does regenerative mean to you?
Yeah, okay, I think that's a really good introduction, because this is an issue. There's a lot of people using the word regenerative for a lot of different agricultural systems. One of the rules that we can use is that the opposite of regeneration is degeneration. And so we would say, you cannot call yourself regenerative if you are doing degenerative practices. And I think that's a good way to keep what I'll call greenwashing out of it, because some of the people who are calling themselves regenerative should not be, because how can you say, if you're using a lot of Roundup and you're poisoning the biology, that you are regenerative?
Mm-hmm.
And I think over time too, we will be able to define regenerative much better, in the same way we did with biological farming and the same way we did with organic farming. Those of us that have started the international regenerative movement, in the beginning, we didn't want to codify it or make the rules too strict, because I think one of the problems we made in the organic sector is that we made it too difficult for people to be organic. Mm-hmm. We actually want to make it easy for people to be regenerative, and I think see how this movement grows, where it evolves, and then we can start making the rules. That process has already started, or several of them. One of them, of course, is regenerative organic, which Rodale worked together with Bronner, Dr. Bronner's soaps, and Patagonia. And that starts with the USDA organic standard, and then there are various regenerative rules on top of that. I think that's a good start. But we will I can say, watch this space. We're going to see it grow and evolve.
Yeah. Just like the years ago, of course, I remember in the 70s we started this sustainable ag. It didn't really have any, what does that mean, sustain? I said, just keep it going the way it is. And so I think it kind of lost out of flavor, although the sustainable, because it didn't really say that meant that you're going to produce this highly nutritious quality food grown in a humane, sane way. And that was, I think, so yeah, I guess that was my questions about the regenerative. Like I said, I like the term, but then you also got to have some kind of a outcome measurement or some kind of a thing, whether it be someone's got to go out and certify this thing, someone's got to take a look at it, because people are not all honest, and some people will just take advantage. The big corporations seem to be going out right now wanting to use regenerative as a marketing tool, and I just hope that it's not something just watered down. See, organic, I think its weaknesses came in the fact that you could be organic by not doing. I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I didn't do that. I must be organic. And that certainly wasn't a good way to take care of the land or produce quality, nutritious food. So that, and then the rules were written with a lot of, it might have been too complex, but then they weren't really even enforced well, and they were never even improved upon with the NOSB didn't really jump on board and make sure, like now we've allowed some things to happen that are long ways from regenerative, biological, or what people think organic is.
Yeah. Look, I think this is a very important conversation. So, the sustainable agriculture debate is an important example. In the end, the world's largest sustainable agricultural corporation is Monsanto. Now, is that what we meant when it started? And the other issue for me is what sustainable means is we keep the status quo without running it down. Now, is that what we want?
Yes.
Is no. The idea of regenerative is that we are improving the system. We're going beyond sustainable, repairing it, and allowing it to regenerate. And where it came from was Robert Rodale, and what he noticed is in any natural environment, if you make a disturbance, stop that disturbance, the ecosystem will naturally regenerate. Now, that's a very powerful force of nature. So the whole thing here is to look at how we work with natural systems, with biological systems, ecological systems, to build our farming systems. And so some of the practices out there at the moment, which people are labeling regenerative, by definition are not.
That's right. And so that's why we got to be really careful. I want to see this thing really succeed, and we got to make sure that it doesn't give a bad taste in people's mouths. So I bought some regenerative food, and it doesn't seem very regenerative. Yeah. And that was the other thing is that I spend my career fighting against some things like, phosphorus is the enemy. You got to make sure you have low phosphorus. Well, low phosphorus doesn't produce high nutritious food. But if what should be stopped is phosphorus running off my farm. I shouldn't be polluting my neighbor with my phosphorus. It should stay on my farm. We also farm, and we've got an organic farm, and we got a dairy herd. We're all grass-based on the dairy, and we like to think we're doing a really wonderful job. And just like no-till is my other big battle. I mean, there's a lot of no-till. You can just about do anything now in America. You can plant up and down hills under the name of no-till. Back in the 70s, when we had our conservation practice, put all these strip crops things in our hilly Midwestern soils, you couldn't plant soybeans on over a 10% slope. Now you can plant it right straight up and down the hill as long as you call it no-till. And there's tons of erosion. Our water's not cleaning up. So no-till has not been the solution. I'd love to see, I guess I'm making a short story long again, but what I'd like to see is the fact that soil health, in some way, is saying soil health and healthy crops. So soil health is a measurable thing. I can see it, I can smell it, I can see what soil health will do. And so our NRCS definitions of soil health like minimum disturbance. I'm a real believer in shallow incorporating residue. So if I'm doing a minimum tillage, and if it doesn't matter what I'm doing as long as my outcome is healthy mineralized soils. If that's my biological one, we always say our objective is to getting healthy mineralized soils. And so soil health is minimum disturbance, cover on the ground, living roots in the soil. I know they don't address minerals as well as I'd like to address this mineralization going on, but I mean, there's certainly some advantages in there. So where does all that fit into how you'll monitor and measure regenerative?
I think it's an excellent point, and we actually do have really good studies. If you start using science and look at peer-reviewed papers, and for instance, it's tillage is being demonized, but it's actually the type of tillage
That's
that is
right.
the problem.
Yes.
So we have good studies showing that you can increase soil health, and the best measure for that is soil organic matter, soil carbon.
Yes.
That is if you get that right, everything else starts to fall
That's
into
right.
place. The one thing we need to talk about, though, is mineral deficiencies, because that's soil carbon doesn't solve everything,
Yes.
but it solves a lot of things. And we have really good studies showing that the right types of tillage can increase soil health and soil carbon better than the herbicide-based no-till systems, and that's evidence-based science. The other one, which to me I think is we have to talk about, is mineralisation. And one of the things I want to say, I'm also a long-term organic farmer. I started also in the 70s, 1971. But it wasn't until I read Gary's book, The Biological Farmer, and understood the importance of mineral balance, using soil tests to get it right, that my yields then went through the roof. I was an organic farmer, but I was one of the highest yielding farmers in my district. Not just yields, the reliability, the quality of the crops. It's so we actually, my definition of regenerative is a whole of systems approach. And in that, I actually believe we have to have ways of measuring. We need to test the soil, to understand, are our carbon levels going up or down? What are my mineral levels? Because one of the things that you find, in my case, the moment I actually started balancing my minerals properly, my carbon levels just shot right up. I just couldn't believe how quickly you could do it in a few years. Because once those plants had the minerals, and and particularly key minerals like boron, calcium, there's phosphorus is another one. You start getting them right, the system responds so quickly. And I think this is a discussion we need to have, and information we need to get out to other farmers. And I know, when you look at the successful farmers and those of us that have done well, we've got our soil right.
Yeah, and I've seen that thing in my whole career and my whole life also. Just like we're convinced these climate changes are here to stay, and we used to be 600 acres and 300 cows, and we made 5 cuttings of hay a year. We baled up all the corn stalks for bedding. We made corn stalks. We left no complex carbons lay on the field. It all got hauled in. Yeah, we tried to get manure back, but that was a little bit of an inefficient system, and we did pasturing, but now the manure is down on the pastures, not on where the feed came from to feed the cows half the year. So then now we're 1,200 acres of cropland, less than 100 cows, and we are now completely switched around. We do just 2 crops. No, we do 1 year soil building and 1 year corn. And so now our organic matter went up 1% in 20 years. And someone said, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And I said, no, it didn't go down 1%. And we weren't farming to raise organic matter. We were farming to grow high intense. We were really working the land hard, making 5 cutting. Now we leave all the straw, all the corn stalks out there. And now our soils are radically changing. We've done that mineral thing out here all those years. But I think you'll see it grow a lot faster, although some of these measurements are a long ways from exact science. You and both, we travel the world, and I've seen a lot of really, really successful farms all over the place. And so whatever that system is, because each part of the country is going to be different, each piece of land is going to be different, and that we got to have some kind of an outcome measurement is my whole push.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think it's really important, and we can base this on science, because actually we do have the science and we do have the evidence. But the other one is, starting with the soil, and this is the whole basis of regenerative agriculture and the practices that increase soil health and increase the mineralization. Now, in the beginning, it's very important that we correct the deficiencies and get that across, to balance it. Once we do that, then our crops grow so well, we're now producing the organic matter.
Yes.
And the system now starts to really look after itself. And I think one of the things that I learned now I don't actually do soil tests that often, maybe every 3 years.
Yeah.
And I know my soil test before I get the results in now.
I'm in the same boat.
And the thing is, you're going to find, depending on where you live, your climate and your soil types, the same deficiency problem will continue to come up. Like, I live in a high rainfall area, I'm always going to need boron.
Yep.
I have really heavy clay soils. Now, so I come in, my potassium levels are down. Now, originally I thought I was deficient in potassium. It wasn't until I learnt that the clay are platelets, and they've got a little separation charge, and it's just the right size for the potassium ions to travel in and be trapped. Now, the solution in my soils is not buying more potassium, but is getting the calcium levels right, because the calcium ion is slightly bigger. It breaks up the clay, makes it more friable, and releases the potassium. I don't have to buy it. So it's understanding the system and getting the management system that is right for your climate and your soil type.
Yeah, and I think you were talking about as we get our soils structured right with use of minerals, the best possible, and then the root systems out here. See, I've been doing a lot of testing at the tops and the bottoms. If I double my root system, I say we can cut our water and our minerals in half that we need to grow that crop. But we also do a lot more things with all these little channels and breathing tubes in our soil.
Yeah.
And that's why I always say moldboard plowing or aggressive chisel plowing is tears up middle zone. Remember, the fence post rots up on top, and so I think you know anything you want to the top couple inches without destroying what's being built down below, the mycorrhiza, all those little things and all those filaments and earthworm channels. That's the part I don't want to tear apart.
Yeah.
That's why I said the no-till guy taught us you can't plow, dig, and disc every year. The strip-till guy taught us if you plant in those little zones and strips and you place some nutrients low and grow huge big root systems and then don't disturb them, you've put a pretty successful system in place. There was a Randy Jackson, our University of Wisconsin, he just was at a meeting the other day. He's really into permanent agriculture.
Yeah.
But can we feed the world with permanent agriculture? Now, he was pointing out that permanent agriculture is really the only one that successfully improved water infiltration that no-till did not. And a whole new study just came out in September on this whole thing. And so I think that's that whole thing about can we have systems work? I mean, everybody says, can we feed the world all organically or all regeneratively? Are you asking the regenerative to be all or chemical-free or organic? Are you saying some chemistry use? And now we got organic insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, and pesticides. Are they now acceptable? How does this go? Where do we go with that?
Yeah. Look, I think one of the reasons why we didn't want to be prescriptive is that I think there's a lot of different systems, and they all have roles, and in the end, and we're still developing them. This is the other one. And when you talk about things like permanent agriculture, that's actually what my system is. I've got
trees.
I've got trees, an orchard, but I have other plants underneath it where I graze cattle and other animals, produce other crops as well. And these systems can be some of the most productive with the amount of food that we can produce per acre. So in many ways, for me, it's about rethinking our systems and looking at how we do it. And, the point you made about roots, roots for me are the key, because roots build soil. The roots shed carbon. The deeper we can get our roots, the deeper we make our soils. We want deep roots. And it's one of the reasons why I actually like perennial species. And having them in the system, because they can have years to go down. Yeah. And when their roots are down, they're getting the water. They are bringing nutrients up from the subsoil into the topsoil, but they're also putting carbon down and bringing in the biology. And for me, there's a great role for perennial plants. And some of the systems we're doing in Australia now is actually growing our annuals in the perennials. And it's how we manage the perennials so we don't have competition, and we can still get the crop of annuals like oats or wheat or the cow salad, we'll call the mixture of annual pasture species, for our animals. So, and what's exciting for me is seeing now these new systems develop, and this whole concept of thinking regeneratively in terms of we want to improve our system, how can we do it, and avoid degenerative practices. This is actually leading now to what I'm calling, a new revolution in agriculture and agricultural systems.
So now and I guess I was asking a question about it. All land is different in the countryside. Even if I'm turning a farm into a permaculture kind of a thing with the Savannah Institute, and looking at, I got sand knolls over here, I got creek bottoms down here, and I got clay knobs and limestone rock up here, and I got south facing slopes, and north it's hilly country. So what's suited to grow best on every piece of land and everywhere it grows? Some of that, and I've been working on some of the same things you have. I'm really, because we grow corn and soybeans, and corn's a big crop, is that can I run strip till things and leave my living mulch in between my rows that aren't competitive against my crop? And I think a lot of that needs equipment development, and it's got to be done on the same way. I say 10% of the land in North America is suited to be no-till, and 10% suited to be organic, and everything else is on the fringes. Some of it needs to be in permanent pasture, some of it needs to be in trees and forest, and what's the diet of people. So in order to drive this moving forward that you're talking about, it takes consumer support. Their dollars got to be put into what you're doing.
Yeah.
And how are you looking at labeling food? Are you looking at how are you going to get to the consumer to convince them that what you're doing is better?
Look, I think that's a really important issue. At this stage, myself and others, we've been against using regenerative as a marketing tool simply because we haven't defined it. And I believe if we do it now, it'll be a greenwash tool. And it'll only take one investigative journalist to go to one of these so-called regenerative farms and see them spraying all these chemicals. You've lost the consumers, and you've lost the brand of regenerative.
Yeah.
And we have to be very mindful of that. Because, I know in my time, I used to be the president of Organics International, the world body, and I was the longest serving president. And I would collect all the research from all countries in the world where we can get it, which is over 100, on why people bought organic. And, it wasn't taste, it wasn't the environment, it was health. And when we broke down health, it was avoiding pesticides. Now, the organic industry is worth more than $100 billion, and it's growing. It's the fastest growing of all the so-called ecological farming systems. And that is based on consumers wanting to avoid chemicals. And, you see all these other so-called eco-labels that come in, but most of them come and go and they fail. Mm-hmm. They don't get market penetration. And those few that have a single percentage compared to, what I mean is they are a fraction of a percent of the size of the organic. They are nothing. Mm-hmm. What regenerative has to be really careful of is one, whether they do get market penetration, and secondly, if that market penetration is seen as greenwashing, it's lost.
Yeah, I mean, that's why our system of farming, we're organic, and we're very profitable. My son is 40 years old, very successful, has done really well at it. And we get paid more for that. But the price, I think the price isn't fair for taking care of the land or being sustainable. What I'd say was it didn't have to be at the extreme organic price, because right now I got a flour mill, and we're a young couple, and they're making corn tortillas. I'm delivering them organic corn for the same price they paid for conventional. And it was a white corn. And I said, now, if you go to the store, I don't want to see it charged 4 times more for it. Yeah. And so, because the farmer didn't make that money, just like our milk, we get 50% more for our milk than conventional, and in the store it's 4 times more than conventional. I know. And that hurts us out here. And so in the regenerative world, I guess guys that do it, the people ought to want to do it because they want to take care of the land, and maybe there's another generation coming, but I think they're probably going to want to also have a market help here.
Look, and it's a really good illustration, because in my case, I was one of the original certified organic farms in Australia. We're the people who pioneered it. But, I never got an organic premium, because I'm selling exotic tropical fruits like rambutans and durian and mangosteen and star apples. And the average person in Australia didn't know these fruits. And my market was actually Australians of Asian heritage who knew it.
Sure.
They didn't know what organic was. It meant nothing to them. And so I never got an organic premium. I certified my farm out of principle. But in the end, I got a huge premium, not because I was organic. My customers didn't know that, but because my quality was so good that the customers would go back to the fruit shops and request my brand. And as a result, my agents would pay me $20 a box more than my colleagues. That's how I made my money, on quality. But the other one is, and I'll get back to it, you get the right system. There's no need for organic to be low yielding. I was up there in the top echelon of the growers in my district in terms of the yield and the quality. And the other really important thing in my business model is my production costs were lower. So, in the end, I'm a very profitable farmer by getting the systems right. And that is what I want to get across with Regenerative. You don't think, we'll get it certified so I can get a premium. No, you'll get the premium if you deliver the quality. That's what the market wants. And the market isn't stupid. They will know whether that's real or they're being ripped off.
I had a friend of mine in Maine. He was an extension agent, and he passed away now, but he used to grow pick-your-own strawberries. And there was always a little competition, and he was really into this thing. He said the most exciting day in his life is when the guys that would pick strawberries, the consumer would go out and drive by his neighbor and come to his place because the berries were bigger and better and taste better. And I think that is a fun thing to put in agriculture. And I've been organic a long time, too. When I first went to Australia in 2000, there's no question. They said, there'll never be an organic here because our farmers aren't as extremely chemical as yours. Well, Roundup came along, and organic grew in Australia also. And so organic I think was good. Do we need another system? Because obviously the organic has got a lot of flexibility, and it's not necessarily meeting what the consumer standard is, but it's a good stepping stone. And I'm not saying, as an organic farmer, I say we're a biological organic farmer. I can also say, I'll gladly say I want to be a regenerative one. And now our trouble is I think our soil organic everything's going up, and so when they come along to measure things, if we're measuring improvements, I made the improvements long before they started measuring me. So we're going to say, just like this carbon credit and all these things, we're not the ones that are going to get paid. The guy who's doing a lousy job will get paid.
No, exactly, Gary. I started with less than 1% soil organic matter, and I'll say I've got an average of 6%. Actually, I know in many places I test it's 9%. And I did most of that in 11 years, and then what happens is you reach a stasis. The system stabilizes. That's what I'm trying to say. I no longer have to soil test because I know exactly what's going to be in my soil test. The system now, it looks after itself. Once you've got the management systems up and running, that's the beauty of it. Now, I'll never get carbon credits because, I've done the work and they're not going to back pay me, and I'm happy, at 6%, that's a good level for our production. I'm really happy to keep my place the way it is. It's humming along and running beautifully,
Well, I think you're spot on with all these things out here now, how to get the farmers and the consumers and get some of these farmers to do it. So the farming has got, so they got kind of, in the Midwest, I'm talking about corn and bean guys. It's, it says 4x4 on their side of their pickup for a reason. They work 4 weeks in the spring and 4 in the fall, and they got 44 vacation. And so how are you going to change that model to get them to do a better job? They're going to have to put more time and energy in it, but they have to be passionately involved.
Yeah. Actually, I think passion is right, and actually the other one I really loved is actually when Bob Quinn did his presentation, and the last one was that we make farming fun again.
Yes.
Enjoy it, and
that's true. They're not having fun out here.
Yeah,
no, they're not.
And I think that's a really critical thing when you're designing new systems and rethinking it. The challenge, that is fun. Otherwise you're just a labourer. Yeah. And in this case, we're our own scientists, we're our own creators, and that brings, for me, that is the most satisfaction in my life. And it's why I love farming, and
me
I
too.
could recommend it to anyone.
Yeah. So, well, great. I wish you certainly really well on all your projects and endeavors, and I'm certainly a big supporter. And of course, I'll always be cautious in making sure that nobody's using the terms regenerative and just using it for marketing or ploy. And what happened to the organic and the big corporate thing got in it when it really didn't follow the system and weren't really what the people were paying for wasn't being delivered.
Yeah.
So I'll be checking all the time.
No, look, I'm the same. I think it's very important. Watch this space, see how it evolves. But I think also we can help mentor and work with farmers, because the thing is about you and I, we've got a lifetime of experience.
Yeah.
But really importantly, we are both very successful in what we've done and how we do it. And we're very happy to pass that success.
That's
We'd love
correct.
to see other farmers
That's
enjoy the success we have. So we mightn't know all the answers, but we can really help start people on the right pathways. Anyway, Gary, once again, it's great catching up with you. I think you've been one of the greatest influences on farming, and I always recommend for people, when they start to read your book, I think that's the best primer to get people started.
Thank you.
And I really mean it, because that's my own personal experience. I read your book, started applying it, and I went from always struggling, how many farmers year to year struggling to just break even, to suddenly becoming, suddenly is years in farming. I then became a very successful farmer. Everything started to fall into place. And so for me, and I'll say it here, for people to get the biological farmer, it'll be the best investment you ever make, really.
Well, thank you. I said that was my topic here at the Acres Conference. Is I was really going through the fact that I think I've been at this 40 years, a long time, that we have the bases all figured out. And now people might have to take one or two pieces of it, but we understand the minerals. We know there's a whole bunch of minerals around. We understand the biology. We know what they need. We know we need diversity, and we understand physical, the tillage. We know we got to have nice aerated loose cover. We know that all. Now we just got to implement that as a base, and then take it from there. But that takes time and money, and hopefully the farmers will get with it. I think our trying times in this country are when the youth don't want to farm anymore. We got issues, and we better fix it.
Look, and I
hope
think
this spurs them on.
Yeah, and I think that's another issue that we really need to talk about. When the average farmer is our age, there's a problem. We can't farm forever. We'd like to, but it ain't going to happen. And how we can bring in our next generation, we need them. We really need them, and make life profitable and good for them. But I think you and I, we have that experience. We just got to work out how to mentor them and get them on the land.
So I like spending my time at. So
Yeah.
great.
All right. Anyway, thanks, Gary.
Thank
Great
you.
to speak with
Nice
you as
visiting.
always.
Pleasure.
That's regeneration.
Yeah.
Wow. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I want to thank these two for their hard work and devotion to healthy soils and building better farming systems, for sharing their wisdom, and for never giving up. It takes people like Gary Zimmer and André dedicated for a lifetime to create the kind of changes that we need to become truly regenerative. So I hope you're fired up, because we've got work to do. Like they said, we don't want this to just become another marketing tool. So let's start talking. I want to know, how do you define regenerative agriculture? And how are you applying it on your farm or in your life? Comment below, share this video, and watch this movement grow. Thanks so much, and stay on the road to regeneration. I'm Will Crombie from the Organic Compound.